Former President Donald Trump arrived in Florida today to be formally arraigned for his charges. We're going to be discussing his indictment, which I have read cover to cover. The House Oversight Committee reveals that there may be over a dozen phone calls between President Biden and his son, Hunter Biden, communicating with a foreign national about a potential bribe. And the Department of Defense indicates that nearly 80% of American men are unfit for service. This is the noteworthy news that you need to know for today, Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. But first, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this post. Hit the subscribe button down below, and also be sure to follow me at Julie R. Hartman on Instagram and Twitter. First, let's discuss this Trump indictment, which we have been seeing in the news over the past few days. President Trump arrived this morning at Miami's International Airport to be formally arraigned for his indictment charges. I'm going to be defining all of these terms. What does arraignment mean? Basically, it means that he has to sit in a courtroom and be formally told of what is being charged against him. He then has to enter a plea, guilty or not guilty, and as of a few moments ago, we have learned that he has pled not guilty to all counts that are being levied against him. But let's go back to see what he is being indicted for. And an indictment is just a fancy way of saying he is being charged for a crime. A special prosecutor appointed by our Attorney General Merrick Garland has filed an indictment against former President Donald Trump, specifically alleging that he had obstructed justice and mishandled several classified documents, principally at his estate Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. Now, this is a federal criminal case, so this special prosecutor gets to decide where the crime will be prosecuted, in which federal district around the country this case will be heard. Every single state has at least one federal district. Florida, because it is a populous state, happens to have several. But President Trump is going to be charged in one of those districts, the Southern District of Florida, which is in West Palm Beach. This makes sense because Mar-a-Lago, the estate at which President Trump allegedly mishandled his documents, is located in this Southern District of Florida. Now, there was some talk that this special prosecutor would pursue this indictment in Washington, D.C., as opposed to West Palm Beach, Florida. In Washington, D.C., this prosecutor would have been more likely to gain a jury that would have been less favorable to President Trump, because Washington, D.C. is quite liberal. But he is pursuing these charges in the Southern District of Florida in West Palm Beach, A, because of its proximity to Mar-a-Lago, and B, my own speculation, is perhaps the prosecutor wants to give more of an aura of this charge being legitimate. He wants the public to accept that these are legitimate crimes being levied against former President Donald Trump and not just a political game. There are many reasons for people to believe that this is a political game. Political games are played constantly with regard to the former president. But if we look closely at this indictment, as sad as it is to say, there are really damning parts of it. I have actually read the indictment cover to cover. If you would like to read it, I would encourage you to especially focus on pages 10 to 25. That's where the bulk of it is. But in case you just don't want to read it, I have it here for you. He is being charged principally on violations of the Espionage Act. The Espionage Act says that basically whoever has possession of confidential documents and A, shows those confidential documents to someone who is not authorized to see them, or B, withholds those documents from someone who is authorized to see them, is violating that statute. Those are counts 1 through 31 of Trump's indictment. Other counts include conspiracy to obstruct justice, i.e., President Trump did not hand over the documents once the Department of Justice had requested him to do so. And then there are some other seemingly repetitive counts, 33, 34, and 35, withholding a document or record, corruptly concealing a document or record, concealing a document in a federal investigation. Those to me, again, just seem redundant. We know what's going on here. So President Trump's defense could be that A, he didn't know that the documents that he was possessing and perhaps showing to others were classified, because intent can actually be a legitimate defense, or that B, he has a right under the Presidential Records Act to declassify documents once he has left the office. The problem here is that there is a damning recording, according to this indictment, in which President Trump is espousing certain claims, which indicates that he A, knew that he possessed these documents, and B, he knows he can't declassify them. So let's look here. Again, these are pages 10 to 25 for those who are interested in reading it themselves, but I'm summarizing it for you here. So the indictment principally includes some pictures which a Mar-a-Lago or several Mar-a-Lago staff members disclosed to the Department of Justice of baskets of classified documents being held in facilities that were not properly secured. There are photos, allegedly, according to this indictment, of classified documents in the ballroom at Mar-a-Lago, in fact, on the stage of the ballroom. Apparently, there are also some documents that were held in the business center of the estate, the bathroom, even the shower of one of the facilities at Mar-a-Lago, a storage room near the basement, which allegedly, again, according to the indictment, has clear and easy access to the pool area where guests lounge frequently. And even there were some documents found at the summer residence of President Trump at the Bedminster Club, which is in New Jersey. As bad as this is, there should be no official in our government which so lackadaisically deals with classified documents. We can all agree. But so far, what I have just outlined to you is not any different from what we have seen from former Vice President Mike Pence, or our own President Joe Biden, or the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. These three individuals were found to have possessed a multitude of classified documents that they left in Vice President Pence's case, his Indiana home, in President Biden's case, his garage, and in Hillary Clinton's case, 30,000 of them on a private email server in her basement. So far, as bad as it is for President Trump to be holding these documents kind of in these public places in Mar-a-Lago, it doesn't differ from the other crimes which other high-profile public officials have committed. What makes this different is that recording that I mentioned, at least from my reading of the indictment. President Trump, in July of 2021, allegedly gave an interview at the Bedminster Club in New Jersey, where he has this club. And he was meeting with a writer who was helping him write a book that he is going to publish, he meaning President Trump, soon. And so he's talking with this author at this Bedminster Club, and there are two other Trump aides in the room. Now, this conversation is being recorded at President Trump's consent. He knows that whatever he's saying in this room is on the record. It wasn't a secret recording. He was talking with these individuals in the room about a rumor that the press had picked up, which said that senior military officials, principally General Mark Milley, feared that Trump would attack Iran at the end of his presidency. And allegedly, according to these media reports, General Mark Milley advised Trump from doing so. So this was the stuff that was on the cover of the New York Times, plastered all over CNN. And President Trump, in July of 2021 at the Bedminster Club, was talking with this guy who was helping him write the book and two other Trump aides about this rumor. So what does he do? He pulls out a classified document, according to the indictment, and he says, this classified document proves that the media was lying. Here's a direct quote from the indictment. He shows this classified document allegedly and says, look what I found. This is Mark Milley's plan of attack. So essentially, he's trying to prove to the people in the room, I wasn't the one who wanted to order the attack, as the media is saying. Mark Milley wanted to order the attack. He presented it to me. Look at this document. So President Trump is saying, look what I found. This is Mark Milley's plan of attack. He said, I wanted to attack Iran, but this wasn't done by me. This was him. This totally wins my case, you know, except that it is, you know, highly confidential, secret, This is secret information. So President Trump is on this recording acknowledging that he is presenting a top secret classified document to people who don't have security clearance. By the way, he continues, isn't this incredible? This document he's showing to the people in the room. This was done by the military and given to me. I think that we can probably declassify it. Then he pauses and he continues, see, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, you know, this is still a secret. So this recording, which love President Trump, hate President Trump, it was really ill-advised for him to sit there while he is being recorded, upon his consent being recorded, and essentially talk about how he has possessions of classified documents and talk about how he's showing these documents to the people in the room. That was not smart, given that he is the most heavily sought after leader in the United States. People go around every corner. They will make anything up to try to get this guy. Here he is handing it to his opponents in this recording. Now, his defense could have claimed ignorance, could have claimed he had no idea it was a classified document. But this recording, he says, this is highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. He's acknowledging he knows it's secret. So that nullifies the defense's, perhaps defense, for lack of a better term, the defense's defense that he was ignorant. That's gone. Now, they could have also argued that the Presidential Records Act could have allowed President Trump to declassify this information upon leaving office. But then again, in this recording, President Trump says, quote, see, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, you know. So if I'm the people who are going after Donald Trump, I would play that in court and go, well, your defense that he could have declassified this is null, because here he is on the recording admitting that he can't anymore. So the plausible defense that President Trump has is the double standard. And this is totally legitimate, which we are going to get into. As I mentioned, our former Vice President Mike Pence, our former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and indeed our own President Joe Biden have had classified, highly top secret documents scattered around their homes, their work facilities, even their lawyers' offices. They have not been prosecuted. There hasn't even been so much as an investigation, with the exception of Hillary Clinton, into these maldoings. So what President Trump's defense is probably going to argue is going, wait a minute, so you're going after this guy because he's a Republican, but then there are Democrats who do the same thing and you let them off the hook. And that is a totally legitimate defense. Another thing that is very important to know is that because this is a federal criminal case, all 12 members of the jury have to vote that President Trump is guilty in order to convict him of the crime. You know how the left talks about, oh my gosh, America's so systemically racist. The justice system is against those who are accused of committing a crime. It's always working against them. Tell them this. Hold this fact close to you to whip out when those individuals spew these lies about the United States. In federal criminal cases, 12 out of the 12 jurors have to vote guilty in order for that person to be convicted. If one of them votes not guilty, they are not convicted. It's not a majority. It's not even a supermajority. It's a unanimous vote that requires a conviction. This was intended in order to actually benefit the person who is being accused of committing a crime. We want to be damned sure that if someone is accused of something, that they actually committed it. This is actually a guardrail in our criminal justice system that tries to prevent abuse. Here, in the case of Donald Trump, because this is a federal criminal investigation, this could help him. All his defense really needs is one juror, just one, to say the evidence isn't sufficient, or maybe the evidence is sufficient, but there is some hole in this case which makes me not want to vote to convict. That hole would plausibly be this double standard. So as long as his defense gets one juror, he's off the hook. Isn't that interesting, by the way? No one knows about this. No one knows about this guardrail, this bulwark in the criminal defense system, which again could probably work to his benefit. So let's talk for a moment before we move on about this double standard. Former Vice President Mike Pence had several documents in his Indiana home. Joe Biden had documents in his garage in Delaware, in his Washington think tank, which none of us knew the existence of until recently, and even some scattered in his lawyer's office in Boston. Hillary Clinton, during the time that she was Secretary of State, had over 30,000 emails on a private server which operated out of the basement of one of her homes. Now, the former FBI director, James Comey, did launch an investigation into this matter, but shortly before the 2016 election, he came out and said that no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case against Hillary Clinton on these facts, so he essentially dismissed it. So what the Trump defense could argue, and indeed what the American people are looking at here, is that two things can be true at once. President Trump, if the indictment is true, mishandled documents. He potentially could have obstructed the justice, i.e. the handing over of those documents. As much as one may hate to admit it, that is probably true, again, if this indictment is right. But it can also be true that there is an egregious double standard. No one is above the law, but no one is beneath it either. That is, no one should be selectively prosecuted for a crime that someone similar to them has committed and been left off for. On to some other encouraging news pertaining to the leaders of the United States. Boy, it just keeps coming and coming. You think one indictment, one investigation is enough, and then you have another. The House of Representatives is engaging in an investigation against our president, Joe Biden, and the first son, Hunter Biden, pertaining to some shady foreign business dealings that the two have allegedly engaged in, both during the time that President Biden has been president, and also during the time that he was vice president, and also during the time that he was the senator from Delaware, or was it from Pennsylvania? You know, I really should know this if I'm doing a news show. Was it Delaware or Pennsylvania? Sean, do you know? You know, Sean, if you're a producer of a news show, you should really know this. This is really bad. I'm going to guess Delaware. Let's guess Delaware. Give us a minute, viewer. I know you're wondering. Hey, if you're the viewer and you don't know this, if you're listening to a news show, you should know this. Delaware. Ha ha ha. Elsie gave me a thumbs up. I knew it all along. I was just tricking you. I was just trying to see if you were paying attention. Basically, President Biden and his shady son have been engaging, allegedly, in some of these foreign business dealings. Now, what has exposed this? Well, principally the Hunter Biden laptop story. Remember that? The New York Post publicized this story 3 weeks before the 2020 election. Twitter quashed the New York Post reporting of the story, saying we need to verify the facts before it goes on Twitter. Turns out that the story was indeed true. The laptop story includes correspondences between Hunter Biden and several foreign nationals, Ukrainian, Kazakh, Chinese, the list goes on, that involve transference of money from those business tycoons internationally to the first son. So we got kind of a glimpse of it in the Hunter Biden laptop story. What really changed was a few weeks ago, as I reported on this show, an FBI informant came to the House Oversight Committee chairman, Representative James Comer. He's a Republican from Kentucky. This anonymous informant said, hey, we, the FBI, have had information about a potential bribe that was given to Joe Biden back when he was vice president from a foreign national in order for Biden to, quote, favorably influence foreign policy. This informant told Representative Comer that the FBI not only had this information, but has had this information since 2020. Using his subpoena powers, Representative Comer subpoenaed the FBI to present the relevant documents pertaining to this alleged case. The FBI Director Christopher Wray stalled. He did not want these documents to be put forth. James Comer threatened that Christopher Wray would be held in contempt of Congress, which is essentially a hearing saying that someone is trying to obstruct the work of the United States Congress. It's a constitutionally given right to levy against someone. And finally, Christopher Wray said, okay, and handed out a lot of the relevant documents pertaining to this alleged bribery case. So the House Oversight Committee has been reviewing these documents. What we know now, according to Representative Comer, is that the House Oversight Committee, which is not just comprised of Republicans, it's headed by a Republican, but it has Democrats too, has allegedly over a dozen recordings between Hunter Biden and the foreign national who was giving the bribe, and our president Joe Biden and the national who was giving the bribe. 15 of the audio recordings are between Hunter and the foreign national. 2 of the audio recordings are between our president and the foreign national, allegedly. And so if this is true, this is huge. Not only does it reveal that our president is compromised, frankly, we should know this because there is evidence that has been coming out so much over the past few years, not just with the laptop story, but also we know that over 20 shell companies, LLCs, were founded during the time that Joe Biden was vice president, in which he got money from foreign nationals. We know that. But if this is true, if these audio recordings and this bribe, this $5 million bribe is true, this is going to show that he has been bought off. This is going to show that our government institutions, principally the FBI, knew about this indiscretion and hid it. And apropos of my previous story, it is going to further exemplify the double standard. What President Trump allegedly did, according to the indictment, is wrong. But here we have an individual who not only did the same thing as President Trump is accused of doing, that is mishandling classified documents, but also got bought off by our foreign adversaries in order to favorably influence policy. That shows the double standard because we see who's being prosecuted and we see who isn't. We see who's being prosecuted and we see who the government is trying to cover up for. So frankly, these cases are more tied than we think. They are tied in the sense that we can all wonder what the hell has happened to America, but they're actually tied because President Trump's defense can use it as an indication of the selective prosecution pursued by our Department of Justice. Now on to the third super encouraging news story of the day. I'm sorry about this. All the news I give you is just kind of depressing. But that's why we have Timeless, because Timeless intends to awaken you to the, for lack of a better word, timeless, eternal, fun subjects that can reawaken our sense of enthusiasm about life. But this news segment is to inform you about some of the not so great parts. So let's go on to this third one. According to the Department of Defense, nearly 80% of American men aged 17 to 24 are unfit for military service. This Department of Defense report was recently released. Actually, like so many of these reports, they were cited or released off the record, clandestinely, not in a super bullhorn way, if you will, to the public. It was actually cited during a February 16th congressional hearing, this report, and it shows that 77% of Americans in that age bracket are unequipped physically, according to the report, to enter the armed forces. This is a 6% increase from 2017. What is the principal reason for this lack of ability of military service? Obesity. Apparently, according to this government report, 42% of Americans are obese, which disqualifies them, not actually on the principle of their obesity, but because of the constraints that their obesity entails, from serving in our military. Now, I am lucky to have a wonderful producer here. I'm lucky because A, he's a wonderful producer, and B, because, especially with the story, he actually served in the United States Navy. And he told me the very strenuous criteria for joining the armed forces, which these 77% of men aged 17 to 24 do not fit. Ready for this? You have to be able to complete 60 push-ups in 2 minutes, 60 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and you have to be able to run 1 mile in 15 minutes. Now, Sean, you and I could do that. He's shaking his head. we could totally do it. It's really not that hard. It really is not. 15-minute mile, you could walk that. It would be a somewhat brisk walk. The point is, this is not like you have to complete a triathlon. I am trying to indicate to you the extent of this issue, that 80% of men in that age bracket cannot fit these basic criteria. And these are men. These are people who are supposed to be extremely fit. Indeed, their physical capacities can aid them in this endeavor, and they are not able to do that. Suffused with this obesity problem, I would like to conjecture, if you will, there is a patriotism problem. With all that is done and said right now to tear down the United States, to say that it is a systemically racist, bigoted, horrible, oppressive country, why would one be impelled to join the armed services? So we have both this physical proclivity issue, and we also have an issue of the heart. Who wants to serve their country anymore? We better wake up and try to fix all of this, because let me tell you, you think China has 80% of their young men not able to serve in the military? I don't think so. Thank you for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe, check out any new Julie Noted content, that is the news portion of the show, as well as my Timeless segment where I talk about eternal subjects of interest. See you all soon. Take care.